Take me home, I wanna know if you're down, ready to go. Wanna fly away with you, float away, fly away.
Jurell,
That's me.
the mastermind behind the crazy antics that are going on over at Levels. Well, second mastermind behind Sheldon.
That's right.
And you've got some new music out. You've done some you're a crazy like guitarist as well. What, dude? And Law? What the fuck? You know, there's a lot you're doing, man.
Yeah, heaps.
Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
No, you're very, very welcome. Hey, how's your mic? Is it?
Yeah, it feels good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
I'm comfortable.
Are you? Oh, that's good, bro.
Yeah, you gotta be.
With this release that you had just recently, was it last Friday?
Yes.
Yeah. How did that get taken? How was that received?
Really well. Definitely my biggest yet.
Yeah.
First time I ever got on any kind of editorial playlists and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's great. It was kind of the dopamine hit I needed.
Nice.
Just that kind of validation. But yeah, it went really well. I put a lot of effort into the song, so it's nice to see it be received positively.
When did you write that?
Oh my goodness, probably about 8 to 10 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we started, well, it was Connor Lawson. He produces for Adrian Zuke.
Hectic.
He and I, we're good friends.
He's a good dude.
He's amazing.
He's a good dude.
He's a genius.
Yes.
Bit of a mad scientist, I call him.
Of music.
With the glasses and everything. Shout out to Connor.
Shout out.
But yeah, so I love funk and soul, and Motown's kind of like my background in music. So he's done a lot of similar things with Adrian. So we linked up, made that track. I wrote it, and then it was a bit of a slow burn in terms of getting a feature and then getting it mixed. But I think that gave me a lot of time to really refine it and get the sonics of it exactly how I wanted it to be.
Nice. So when did you choose to go with Chiseko?
Well, I mean, he was my first choice, really.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I thought he'd be fantastic. And I didn't really know him too well. But I just pitched it to him. I sent it to him, and he liked it. And then we met up a couple times, talked about the track. Obviously, he came to record the verse. Then we did like a couple photo shoots, and yeah, now we're friends. He's a great dude, and he's just perfect for the track.
Yeah, for real, right?
Yeah, he's amazing.
His flow, man, is insane.
Yeah, and I think that he's one of the rare rappers in this city that can really nail that old school feel. And that's a skill, I think, in the modern age with a lot of 808s and really hard-hitting hip-hop beats to be able to, with conviction, lay down a verse on what could have easily turned out to be a pretty cheesy song.
Yeah.
And I think he did a lot in terms of really making it feel serious and vibey and cool instead of just me being like, hey, girl. Which is basically the song. It's just me being like, hey,
look over here. So lay down the timeline. So how long did it take for you guys to get through did you produce the track?
With Connor, yeah.
Okay, right. So you were part of it from the very beginning.
For sure, yeah, 100%.
Okay, awesome, right. So the full ratio of everything was from Jurell's point of view.
Pretty much. I mean, I defer to the expertise of my collaborators as much as I can. So I kind of just wanted to make a really funky track, but Connor is a producer professionally, so he is great at taking my vision and turning it into a song.
Yeah.
So I mean, I produced it with him, but obviously, technically, he took a lot of the reins, on the program and making sure all the sounds were right, selecting the right kinds of drums. But the great thing about this song, the thing I think I love the most about it is that there's a lot of guitar.
Yeah.
And my musical background is all guitar. I started playing guitar when I was very young, before I started singing and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great chance. And Connor is also a guitarist, a very, very good one.
Okay.
So we jam a lot. So it was nice because we already kind of had that musical relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just kind of started jamming out, just playing some pretty basic, funky little licks. And that was probably... What is it now? We're in almost November. It was probably about a year ago, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You kind of need to sit on a track for that long, right?
Definitely.
That's how you get the feel for it. You know that's going to be the one.
Yeah. I kind of get the sense sometimes, well, at least in my own experience, that you either knock it out really quickly or it festers for a while. And there's not really much in between, at least for me.
Right. How do you go about the ones that are really fast?
Well, ironically for myself, I haven't really released songs that I've created pretty fast. Well, my first couple I released, I created pretty fast, but it's just the feeling. I think you just kind of know when it's right. You're just kind of like, well, there's nothing else to do. And a lot of the reason why I Don't Mind took so long is just I was busy as well, and have kind of been going through this really interesting journey of not really being sure if I want to be a recording artist, and the overlap between whether I need to be or I'm just releasing music for the sake of it. But my music, I think, is at the level now where it would be worth investing some time into promoting it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reason why it was kind of on hiatus is because I was just figuring out what I wanted to do in general. But I think the song, especially now that it's out and it's been received so well, has done a lot for me in terms of informing where I want to go from here.
So it's kind of like the first foot in a step. Well, first step in a journey.
I think so.
Footstep. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I started making music, it was just kind of just messing around. I was just fucking around pretty much.
Right.
And like I knew I could like kind of sing. So I just kind of made a few R&B tracks, but then I started learning things like mixing and mastering and production. And when it was revealed just how technical and difficult and nuanced the music creation process is, that really, in my very logical mind, told me, okay, well, this is only going to work if I spend a lot of time and effort. But I think now it's at a place where I know so many talented and great people I have a great relationship with that I can just make music far more easily than I did when I started.
Did you find it inspiring? The arduousness, is that a word?
Yeah. Great word. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I've got like most artists, I've got a bunch of songs in the vault that are about that arduousness and kind of the artist's journey between starting and then that inevitably awkward middle period, unless you're very lucky, and then some real success. There's always that, I find, that bell curve almost where it's really fun and almost easy in the beginning because it's not that deep.
Yeah.
But then when it starts becoming deep, and you're like, well, this is really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
Then you have to start thinking seriously about, okay, well, how much work do I need to put in? Who can I talk to? What am I doing?
It's almost like a language, right?
Totally.
When you only know a few words, it seems like the furthest thing, but as soon as you've got a good understanding, the basis of like being fluent in a language, it's like, it just opens your world.
Yeah. And one thing I always tell a lot of young artists is try and engage with the technical aspects of music, because I think, especially like people that are closer to our generation, we grew up with music being a lot more instrumental, like people were playing drums, guitar, and bass.
Correct.
Whereas now there's this crazy level of technicality to even pretty basic hip hop songs. Like, how do you get an 808 from a synthesizer that sounds absolutely perfect? Whereas before, you could just kind of amp up a bass guitar and get it right.
Everything's muddy as fuck.
Yeah, that's right. But there's a sentiment about that I quite miss, I think, in music. Sometimes I think it's been over-technicalized. That's not really a word. But it's over-technical in some ways.
I would use that word.
It makes sense. Like, if you hear it, you'd be like, I know what he's trying to say.
Yeah. It's like containerize.
Containerize.
I didn't realize that that's a fucking word too.
Is that a real word?
That's an actual word.
Oh my goodness.
Containerizing is putting something into like a specific container.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it blew over my mind. With your with the journey into learning mixing and mastering, did you come at it from a place of like, I want to do this for myself, or was it for like other people as well, or did you have like a broad understanding of like, I've got to actually work with others to get better myself?
That's a really good question. I think kind of both, because when I discovered things like mixing and mastering, it was pretty much when I made my first song. Because, okay, I've got this song now, I've got the beat, I've recorded the vocal, sounds terrible, what do I do? So at first, I was actually really keen on academically studying it. I was going to enroll in a course and pursue something like sound engineering.
SAE.
Something like that, yeah. I was looking at a couple options.
Do you know who told me not to do that?
A few people.
Sheldon.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, dude, don't do it.
But at the same time, Dinge is is a SAE graduate.
Is
He's killing
he?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
got his
killing it
bachelor's in
big
music
time.
prod.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. But I think that they are both great examples of how you can achieve the same thing from very different places.
100%.
But for me, I mean, and by no means am I a sound engineer at all, and all my sound engineering is primarily done by Sheldon and a couple others.
Why
But
not use the best?
But learning the language, like you said, is so important for artists because you get to communicate to the engineer how you want your song to sound. And if you have the language, then I think that you can filter the emotion and the feeling that you have as an artist into a technical framework that a sound engineer can execute quickly and with ease. So the language is so important. Even when it comes to even production and those kinds of things, like basic things, like it might sound a little bit silly because obviously, you know, you play guitar, you've got a studio, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty amazing the amount of like singers and rappers I know that don't really understand things like what is the key of a song, like what is a key, what is a chord progression, what really is a tempo, what is swing. And when you start learning those concepts, you can inform your own art. It comes from a technical place, which I think is pretty cool. The overlap between technicality and expression is most prevalent. Firstly, I think in filmmaking, and then music is a very close second.
Well, I think with the progression and innovation of technology and simplifying things, the simplicity almost drowns out the beauty of music. you know, the progressions and that's why I've got this guy right here.
Yes.
Mozart.
Yeah.
Right? Because they didn't have like FL
Chord
Logic.
packs.
Yeah.
MIDI chord packs.
Yeah, they didn't have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he had to figure it out himself.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a beauty to the composer.
Yeah.
The actual composition of music.
Totally, man. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. In fact, my first love of music was classical music, but film scores.
Oh, what?
So my dad is a huge sci-fi fanatic.
That's cool.
So when I was very, very, very little, I was watching things like Star Trek and Star Wars. And like John Williams, I distinctly remember in like year 3 or 4, we had to do like a project, like a paper mache kind of construction. And I tried to make like John Williams orchestra recording the score. It obviously I was 8, so it was at that level.
Paper
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But I was always fascinated by the compositional aspects of music. But what's really interesting, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because what that meant was that to have access to the resources to compose music, even in terms of the education that you need to compose music, you would have to be either in a position of luck or privilege. Whereas now, people who aren't necessarily lucky and certainly aren't privileged at all have access to this technology and are getting out of really bad places and just making amazing music in general.
It's almost like luck displacing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
You're basically heightening your chances for, success.
Yeah, and recognition.
And that's most of the time, that's the things that we go for as people in a society. Is like, you want to be recognized by your tribe. It comes from a tribal aspect of like
100%.
If you weren't accepted back in Neanderthal days, you weren't eating, which means starvation and death.
Yeah.
And that kind of never really gets bred out of us.
No.
It's like people that have like family members leave their lives quite early. They get massive amounts of serious like issues in their lives, like trust issues and stuff.
Totally.
Leading to like drug use and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Why? Because they didn't get accepted.
Yeah.
Why does it do that? Why does it fuck us up that much? Aren't we all individuals? Don't we all have like a singular fingerprint? No.
No, not at all.
Life is a collaboration.
It is. Yeah, well said. And I think with music, especially going way back into time. I mean, I've always known that we could essentially sing before we could speak, before the muscles that we have to articulate things developed. We would create vocalizations to communicate, and I think that is why music connects so emotionally and deeply with people, and it's so cross-cultural. And it comes from this Neolithic evolutionary place where we would tell stories and have expression and even do things like signal safety and danger with vocalizations that over obviously millions of years are still prevalent and relevant in our modern day expression and communication with each other. But it only works if it's received, like any message.
Yeah.
And I think that's the tribal aspect. If I'm out here trying to express myself and there's no one to hear it, that's one of the most hurtful things ever.
Yeah. It's almost like when a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Nope.
not really. If it's received, maybe.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up, because we have gone through this whole eternity, like even going back on the Neanderthal and caveman days. They hit you in the head if they want to mate, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's a grunt.
Exactly.
Maybe they had language. I don't know. I wasn't alive
Or
then.
proto language.
Yeah, like a series of hand gestures and
Vocalizations.
African, like some cultures in Africa, they still have that clicking dialect.
Yeah.
Which is
Well, one of the most spoken African dialects is Orsa. I think that's how you say it.
really.
Yeah, and that is I think the amalgamation of a lot of those kinds of languages. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think a lot about this stuff. It's been something on my mind over the past couple of years, particularly during COVID when we went into lockdown in 2020. I'd pretty much just left my job and had this grand vision at the end of 2019 to go overseas. My sister lives in Los Angeles. I was going to go maybe crash on her couch for a bit and just kind of like do music. It feels a bit naive, but it was what I wanted to do. And then everything got busted when we went into lockdown. And that was a real shock. But that was the time that I started doing things like learning about mixing, mastering, production, and really myself and what I want, because we had the time.
I think a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
It's almost a reflection of, if you get locked in, there's two really kinds of different people. If you get locked down, right, there's the people that go, finally, a rest.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you've got the other people that are like, what am I fucking doing with my life?
How dare you tell me to stay here?
Yeah. But it gives you time for self-reflection.
Yeah.
What really makes me happy? If this is a world-ending pandemic,
Yes.
what do I want to say this last 2 years has been for me?
Absolutely.
Do I want to come out of this with like a mixing and mastering and like pursuing music to something that you actually want to do?
Yeah.
Or do you want to sit on the couch getting fat and heightening your chances of a lower immune system?
Yeah, 100%.
It was a really weird time in history, man.
Yeah, it's funny now that we are actually reflecting on it. There was a period where it's like, when, if at all, is this going to end?
That doesn't seem like too long ago.
No. I mean, I wonder if it's still like if they were to turn around next week and say there is a brand new variant, it's crazy, everyone's going to die, we're going back into lockdown. I mean, that would be disappointing, but I also wouldn't be particularly shocked either, just given how often that's happened. I was going to use the word conditioning, but I don't really want to use that word. I think, we are in a place where we are somewhat conditioned to at least expect something like that potentially soon. I hope not. And obviously there's still a lot of countries struggling with it. But I think, to your point, I hope that for most people, and my sense is that it is, or was for most people, a moment to sit down and actually think and take a breath for the first time in a very long time. And people discovered parts of themselves that they didn't know were there, and renewed love with people that they were living with, or relationships. And it was a moment of obviously a lot of destruction and frankly a lot of death, but hopefully as well a lot of healing and reconciliation.
So how long into, so you said at the end of 2019, start of COVID, that you were like, let's go.
Yeah.
Did you take into account like writing as well? Were you writing during that time?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of kind of singer-songwritery vibes. Pick up the guitar, jam out, see what I can make.
Do you always go into it with a singing kind of like vibe?
I think so. For my own music, definitely, yes.
Yeah. Well, you've got the vocal cords for it.
Well, auto-tune helps a lot. Or Melodyne.
Melodyne.
Shout out to Salamoni.
Yeah, for real, bro. I love that.
That is a hack.
That plug-in.
Talk about technology, hey.
Dude, but pricey if you want the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I paid like $750 American.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. The technology for that is crazy. But I think, for me, I always approach it with with singing in mind. I mean, there's been a few times where I've made a track and I'm like, this is definitely for someone else, or this is for a different type of singer that's proficient in a different genre, or maybe even for like a rapper or an MC or something like that.
Okay.
But I always obviously try and have a crack at singing on it myself. But I think I've got pretty good at recognizing when a song isn't necessarily for me and it may have greater success with someone else, and I just get a cred.
I've talked about this on the podcast before, as we're like filters. Ideas that people think, like you come up with an idea.
Yeah.
You don't really. They enter your brain. Apparently we have like 75,000 thoughts a day.
Probably.
And our brain can only characterize
Feels
so
like that.
many. Yeah. Like some people like get too much in the filter.
Yeah.
But if you can see your ideas as not yours, so you're not married to an idea like a song that isn't yours, you still go ahead with the creative process.
Yeah.
And then you create it for somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I can't even wrap my head around that, because if I'm not feeling something, like, I'm not an artist in that I don't put music out under the banner of Jacob Rhodes.
Yeah.
But I do make beats and I do mix and master for my artists and stuff. But very rare will it be like, I'm making this for a particular person, or if I've been asked to make a beat to show somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
It's a trippy kind of like world.
Different process.
If you're taking that into consideration, that like maybe this isn't for you, but I'm going to continue on with the creative process. Big ups to you, man. That's crazy.
Well, it was a lot of listening back to my very terrible vocals over songs because they just did not fit. There was a lot of, and it was like, there was times where it was like very upsetting. And there was times where I was like, can I even sing? What am I even doing?
Right.
And it turns out the answer was just, well, maybe this just isn't for you. Maybe this song just doesn't necessarily suit your voice or your style or your cadence. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad song or that it should go into the bin. But like it did, I think it's a process to get there. But I have a pretty objective mind, and I think it also relates to this whole thing of, I'm not necessarily pushing to be a recording artist. I don't have dreams of selling out stadiums and having people with my name on signs screaming at me. So I'm far more willing to let things go and just kind of be in the background.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So why music then?
Well, music is my passion. It really is my passion. Like I feel so much emotion towards creating it, listening to it, and just being a part of it, really.
That's that emotional bond you were talking about earlier.
Totally. Yeah. Like it's just, I just love it. I honestly, it's so funny. I feel like everyone in the music says this, but I honestly probably wouldn't be here without it, It's just my therapy, truly. And my decision was that I just want to be a part of that world. And now, interestingly, it's expanded beyond that. I'm kind of just almost circling back and merging my past life and current life and starting to slowly enter the world of commercial arts in general. But the start and the catalyst and the foundation for all of that was and is music. But I think, with musicians in particular, probably more so than actors or other kinds of public figures, they get an intense amount of public scrutiny. And in the modern age with, a lot of cancellations and these kinds of things, for me, I just feel that knowing myself and my skills and who I am, I would be more successful and, more importantly, be happier in the background, probably making, just as much as I would if I was a recording artist, unless for some reason someone decides to make me the next JB.
You got the voice for it.
Well, we'll see. I don't have the looks though.
Hey. I wouldn't put it past, like, what's your background?
So my dad's African American and my mom is Burmese.
Okay, and the accent's telling me that you spent some time in America?
Yeah, a little bit when I was a kid. It's kind of like my A's and R's are American and everything else is true blue.
Yeah.
It's weird. It also depends on my emotion, if I'm happy or sad, angry.
So what is angry? Is angry
Angry's really Aussie.
Full-blown Aussie?
Get fucked, cunt. I grew up in Thornley, so.
Oh, shit. Okay. Proper Aussie.
618, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Throw a brick at a duck kind of thing. They've got plenty of lakes out there.
So many. It's a beautiful area, actually.
It is, actually. It's really nice. And it's come up a long way.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful places in Perth. So where did you live in America when you was it?
Well, I'm more visited. Like Cleveland is where my dad's from.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Home of...
The Cavaliers and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Why don't I know that?
Yeah, it's kind of niche, isn't it? That it's in Cleveland. I've never quite figured out why.
Ohio, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. What the hell? You'd think it'd be in like LA or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Does that mean that Tenacious D, the movie, was based in Cleveland?
Yeah, I guess so. The Pick of Destiny. I haven't seen it in yonks. Great movie.
Yeah, good movie.
Cleveland pops up every now and again in pop culture. I'm kind of like, hey.
Yeah, there's been some interesting sounds coming out of that state at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There always has been. Even like with Bone Thugs and Harmony.
True.
And that kind of stuff, you know?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That evaded my mind just then.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because it's kind of sandwiched between New York and Chicago.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cross kind of culturalization between those places.
Yeah.
But I guess those cities are more landmarks economically. So they have a bit more activity.
Do you have any plans to live over?
I don't know. I think only if it was viable. I'm very happy in Australia.
Yeah.
If my career takes me there, then yes. But by no means would I ever try and force it to go there.
So tell me, if I gave you the option to do whatever you wanted to do for the rest of your life, where would you be in the next 20 years?
That's a really interesting question. Whatever I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but it has to be something. I can't just sit on the beach, can I?
No, that's not a dream. That's a fairy tale.
That's true, yes. I think some kind of executive production role.
Right.
Whether it be film or music, a record label exec or a film exec. I mean, I also have a big passion for the creative process. So I think if I were to be at that level, I would only do it if I could actually be involved with making the thing. And I kind of envision that getting there would require a lot of hands-on experience. I'm really passionate about filmmaking and music making. They're my two artistic bases as when I was growing up as a kid. So that's what I really want to do, and I think it's achievable. My sister is a professional actress and filmmaker. Her and her husband run an indie film studio in LA. They make a lot of really interesting film and TV kind of work, just at the grassroots level. And my cousin and his wife are film producers as well, and he's an actor and director. Damn. So yeah, I'm really interested in that world. Film was something I was really into in high school. I won like the media award for ATAR Media, and then I completely did a 180 and then started studying law, and then worked as a lawyer. But now I've really come back to filmmaking, and it's something that with this what I'm doing with Levels is something that we're trying to push ourselves into as well in that space.
Into film?
Not necessarily film, but I think that's the end goal. It would be a very cool end goal to achieve.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But just content creation, videography, kind of services in general. I love it.
So what's the next step that's going to get you guys on that part? Like, have you guys already started?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we have kind of got all our ducks in the row. We're just waiting to pull the trigger at the right time. Yeah, right. I guess that's the best way to say it. So, I mean, we're incorporated. We have a website that's almost completed. Essentially the company makes ads. That's the simplest way to put it. Okay. And manages their distribution and campaigns as well. But we're almost done making an ad for ourselves to kind of show people, yeah, we can make a really sick ad. Look at our ad for us. Right. So I think our plan is once all that's done to kind of put together a launch strategy and just start cold pitching to clients and just really just swinging and just seeing what we can do.
Nobody's done that in Perth.
Well, there actually are a couple.
Are there?
Yeah. I hadn't heard of them until I started doing the market research. There aren't many. There's one in particular. You know Pile Rats?
No.
The music blog?
No.
No, yeah, they're pretty big.
I will Google it. Yeah. When I listen back after the edit, I normally go through everything that you talk about.
Yeah, I can check it out.
Yeah, I can check it
Yeah,
out.
Pile Rats is huge, man. I mean, they're not really in the kind of hip hop or urban space,
right?
But they're a massive music blog, and I think they have like pretty intrinsic ties to Triple J. Okay. Anyway, the guys that made an agency called Made in the Pile Agency, and essentially what they do is they make content, distribute it, and then analyze the data. And they opened maybe anywhere between 5 and 7 years ago, I believe, and they're absolutely killing it. They have an office with staff.
Oh, wow.
And essentially, they're a big inspiration for us, and I think they represent the capabilities of this city. I think what the problem with Perth is that there isn't an infrastructure or a supply chain for really creative people to dive into to get meaningful and high-paying work. So they're forced to move. They have to go over east or overseas. And my passion with particularly commercial law, and I think more the skills I bring from that space, is I'm really good at drafting contracts, creating a supply chain, managing work, setting deadlines, and getting things delivered. And if I can bring in people who are extremely talented videographers, photographers, graphic designers, musicians, marketing people, and just sort it out, the work will be really high quality and the client will be really happy.
Yeah.
That's kind of the MO of the business.
Okay, right. So is there a market? Well, obviously there's going to be market space for you guys to fit in.
Yeah, I think there is, absolutely.
What would you guys target as, would it be the music industry or would it be like a plethora of companies and industries?
Yeah, so I think we want to keep the door as open as possible and not refine the scope too much. But just with the collaborators that we have on board at the moment, I think our primary skill is really working within more urban genres, so fashion, apparel, things like music, even vehicles, those kinds of things,
right?
Rather than things such as wineries, etc. I mean, I love wine,
Yeah,
but I mean, yeah,
that's cool.
But I think that's kind of like where we want to focus primarily. But I also, just again from my background in corporate and commercial law, I'm really, really passionate about capital markets, share trading, and maybe targeting those companies and assisting them with marketing their capital raisings, helping them draft really interesting looking prospectuses that can attract more investors, that kind of stuff.
Right. So you've gone deep into what you can predict would happen and how you'd like the workflow to be post-production?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all one thing, I think. Pre-post production is kind of just production to me. This is something I still think about quite a lot, particularly since we haven't really launched yet and, we're not really running. So
is it predictable?
I think so. I think it's predictable if you establish a framework that you understand. And if you understand your own framework, when you bring something into it, it should work a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's what's really important.
Yeah.
I think, with freelancing, it can be a little bit difficult, particularly for the client. Because, you have big company, they have marketing team. Marketing team has to go to videographer and then go to graphic designer and then go to photographer,
right,
and somehow consolidate a scheme of content or whatever things that they're trying to make in order to market company A. But I think if company A can go to company B, which is us, it doesn't matter if our photographer can't rock up on the day. We'll find another one. It doesn't matter if the videographer is sick or can't get the edit done on time. We'll find a way to get it done. And we are accountable, but I think that gives comforts to a client that allows us to predict an outcome because we are managing and overseeing the process.
That's kind of basically what you said prior to the podcast beginning, is we have like an amazing array of different types of people that work within the industry that you can delegate to.
Yes, precisely. I mean, I can't really even do anything. I'm just really good at writing on Microsoft Word.
I'm just like, here's what you need to do. Awesome song, dude. What are you talking about?
But even still, that was a collaborative process,
Yeah, true.
So I don't really like taking credit for things where...
Well, take it. I'm giving it to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's the imposter syndrome, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you were saying that when you first rocked up.
Yeah.
You're now teaching law.
Yeah, I lecture at Murdoch University.
And you're suffering from a case of imposter syndrome.
Somewhat. I think it's more, I just feel very, very lucky, very grateful to be there.
Okay.
And I take the job extremely seriously.
Okay.
But I think I think this happens with everyone in most jobs. There's moments where you're just like, oof, I've really got to make this work. Mm-hmm. It's not a walk in the park at all.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love teaching. It's so fulfilling for me.
So what's the biggest thing that you've found from, because obviously you studied law.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's the biggest thing that you can take away that you're like, wow, I love that part about teaching rather than learning?
Yeah, I think Good question. I think what I like about teaching is I can teach them things that I have only learned at certain points, or learned through failure, or learned through adversary. And I think I can empower a lot of my students with knowledge that they would have otherwise gained through screwing up.
Ruining it themselves.
Yeah, that's right. And that's really nice. And like the things that I like about law, just as an industry and as a job, are things like being able to effectively communicate, how to write correctly, how to be confident in a room, how to make deals, how to get your point across concisely and clearly, and just be heard and be able to speak with confidence. I think that's really the law is basically wordsmithing. It's the art of communication, really. There is an artistic element that kept me going, studying and practicing it. But not quite enough art for me to stay.
That's interesting, because there's a few different paths that you can go down with, obviously, a career choice. There's take Suits. You know the show Suits? They make it seem super creative.
Yeah. And super cool and lucrative.
Super cool, yeah, and lucrative, and everyone's wearing fly-ass suits and, really tall buildings, and, all the women are beautiful.
Gorgeous.
But
princesses, literally.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, exactly. Shout out.
Yeah, Megan. What's up?
Megan?
Oh, goodness. My guess is she was born Megan and moved to the UK, and they're like, no, you must be Megan now.
Megan. Yes.
You must be.
Stole the prince. Thanks, love. So that's just wild kind of like dramatization of studios.
Yeah, it's like watching like House and being like, oh, this is how a hospital is like.
Yeah, and you just walk in being super sarcastic. They tell you to leave.
Yeah. You're like, this guy has made so many ethical breaches. He's definitely never practicing medicine again.
Yeah.
But I mean, Suits is the thing. I liked Suits when it first came out because I guess, seeing it from the perspective of someone that was studying law, if I had a photographic memory, could remember every word of a piece of law, that would make me the best lawyer ever. But unfortunately, the general public doesn't quite appreciate that angle. So the show gradually evolved from a very interesting legal show to just a normal
relationship
drama, romance.
Yeah. I reckon if they'd kept up with that photographic memory, this kid's a genius kind of thing, it would have been good for maybe another season, and then it'd be like, just shut up. It'd be the same old shit, but it always just like lingers back to like, people want emotion, and numbers don't give emotion.
Totally.
It's a kind of a wild. I've always wanted to sit down and talk to a lawyer. Right.
Yeah.
So you actually practice law?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I practiced for 3 years.
Okay, and was it commercial?
So I started in tax, and then moved to commercial.
Right. Okay. And were you working for the government, or was it a
privately
owned?
Originally I was working for the government, and then I moved to a private law firm.
Okay. Right.
So yeah.
Break that down.
What's
the difference between working for the government and a private law firm in that? Do the private companies... I'm not going to ask that question. Don't want to get myself in trouble.
I'm going to be the one who gets in trouble if I answer it in a certain way.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm here to... That's what I'm trying to do, I guess.
Exactly.
But no, there are some really interesting differences. I think, the government obviously is part of the law-making process. It's both the executor, the people who implement the laws, and in many ways a legislator in terms of they write the laws. So depending on the government department you're in, you are either enforcing the law in many ways, so say like you're a prosecutor for the state or for the country, or you have more of a policy based role where you're drafting laws that are actually then implemented by that department or office.
Okay.
But in private, it's client-based primarily. So, client comes to you with an issue or something that they need you to do, and then you provide the service. So they're very different. And it was really interesting getting a look or a toe in both ponds because they're quite different. I think what was most interesting to me is seeing the people who are very senior in those areas and just the way that they viewed things like the legal profession and the government and the kind of work that we were doing and what you can get out of it and what the career available to you may be if you stay in either world. I think for me, both of them were really interesting. I have a very, very strong intellectual connection to law, but I think, unfortunately, I'm ridden with the need to get a lot of emotion out of my work. I can't just kind of sit there and be like, cool, it's a good job, pays well, I like it, just going to do it, make good money. I need to feel something really deeply to get up every single morning and work.
There are those people that can logic themselves into that everyday kind of same pattern, make sure it's a good job.
And law is super fulfilling. Like, obviously, some of my closest and dearest friends are amazing lawyers. And they get the emotional connection out of it. They're really deeply passionate about it. Whereas for me, I think, like I said, when I was in high school, I was very into the arts. I wanted to do filmmaking and that kind of stuff.
That's a wild leap, dude.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Like, that is a really wild leap. And now for you to move back to music?
Yeah. But I think, with levels and that kind of stuff as well, it's a good merger of my commercial and creative skills.
Yeah. I couldn't actually pick a better suit for you than Sheldon, and a better suit for Sheldon than you.
Yeah.
Right? It's literally everything that he misses and everything that you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that I miss that he provides as well. I mean, I think what's so interesting about Sheldon as well is that he originally started out doing carpentry. And so he has this...
He's Jesus.
Yes. I want to see him in those sandals.
Oh, no.
My guess is that he doesn't shave his toes.
No.
But...
Asian Jesus.
That's right. He has a very practical approach to things because of that. And he's self-made, dude. The guy has... he wasn't really given this at all. He earned it. And I can relate to that as well, because I didn't come from a position of privilege whatsoever, and I really had to push and like study hard and work hard to get to places. So yeah, we're a great team.
Yeah, for sure.
And really good friends.
And I see it's progressing well. Like if you're going into this like production kind of like advert agency kind of thing. Yeah. It's obviously, when did you guys first meet?
About over a year ago.
See?
Yeah.
There you go.
And it's funny, when we first met, it was very just a business kind of chat. He was like, oh, I'm looking at expanding the studio. You obviously know a bit about business. Do you want to have a chat?
So how did you meet?
Through Tobias.
Hey, shout out Mr. Ma.
Yeah, I'm his lead guitarist in his band.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I play with the guy.
Oh, what the hell?
He's too busy in London being rich and famous now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's how this all started, which is so funny, I think, is when I was working in like my tax role, I was working with a dude named Nicholas, great guy. Nick went to school with or was friends with this guy called Aiden, who goes by Outland. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah, I think I have.
Yeah, Outland. Yeah. He also has another project called Amore with a guy called Dylan Guy. Yeah, so Nick said, oh, like you are an R&B singer and guitarist. Aiden is an R&B singer and guitarist. You guys should link up. And I was like, cool. All I'm doing is working, so it'd be nice to get back into music a little bit. Back then, like, it was funny. This is like 2018, 19. I couldn't even really play guitar that well. It was very rudimentary. Right. And then, I linked up with Aiden, and then we became really good friends really quickly. I love the guy. And I had never played a gig before in my entire life. Jeez. I just kind of like, screwed around on the guitar here and there. Like I could sing a little bit, released a cover on SoundCloud, that kind of stuff. And then Aiden was just 110% into this. He was studying at Whopper at the time. He was pushing the Outland project really hard. He was gigging. And I saw in him, I think, what I could have been if I didn't study law out of high school and I kept the arts thing. So I was really, really inspired by him, and we started hanging out. And then he invited me to play guitar for him at one of his gigs. And it was my first gig ever. And I played so badly. It's so funny. But it kind of went from there. Just with him, I got introduced to the kind of Perth music scene. And then I met Tobias, and through Tobias, I met Sheldon.
Hectic. Was that at gigs?
Yeah, and just like after parties and that kind of stuff, that kind of thing.
Sheldon's always up the front of everyone's gig.
Yeah, he's the hype man.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
It doesn't matter if there's 3 people there. He's always up there. I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Such good energy. So how long have you been playing in the band for? How long has
Yeah,
that
I
been?
started playing with Tobias like last October,
Oh, right.
September. So about a year.
Did you travel around with him when he was touring?
Oh no, so that was before
Okay,
I
right.
joined.
Okay.
But we played a lot of gigs together. He's got like a little band. So his drummer Liam, obviously who I'm friends with, and he involves his siblings a lot as well, and they're all very talented. And I think that's fantastic.
1 second. Piss off. That shouldn't come up.
That's all good.
It's all.
It was
That
the
was
phone
loud
ringing,
as
by the
fuck, though, right?
I liked it.
Sorry about that.
No, all good.
That fucking threw me just then. That was loud as shit.
We've got our next caller on the line.
Yeah. I literally could do something like that.
You
though.
could.
Yeah. Fuck that.
I'll call up. I'll put on an accent
Yeah.
and just be completely
Hey,
random.
man.
I'm
Southern.
calling from USSR.
Oh, shit.
Jacob Road. You must report immediately to headquarters.
Oh, God. What did I do? I don't have any... Is it WMOs? WMDs? Wait, that's not it. That's a website medical
WMDs, yeah, weapons of mass destruction.
Oh, it is that?
Yeah.
Okay. I said website
website,
medical doctor.
WebMD.com.
WebMD. That's where I got it from.
Everyone's going to die. That's what that website is.
Yeah, it's literally, I sneezed yesterday, you have ass
Pretty much.
cancer.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. It's terrifying.
Dude, it's, yeah. What do you think we're going, like, so you've seen the progression of, like, social media, right? I'm having a way far out thought right now.
Tell me.
There's a lot of disconnects between people and other people and art due to the fact that it's moving them away from other people,
Yeah.
right? So comedy, take comedy for instance,
Yeah,
right?
great example.
You can't do comedy without an audience.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Music can only be received in one of two ways. Distribution, which is a conglomerate of like companies that want to push the thing, right?
Stakeholders.
Stakeholders, good word. But it comes from a singular artist.
Yes.
So there's a medium there.
Yeah.
But if you pulled away the medium, you would still get art. It would just be a lot more live music. It would be the 1980s again.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
So where do you see this going?
Oh man. Well, I think if we're talking about music specifically,
Yeah.
the oversaturation of music concerns me because it's just increasing capitalization and corporatization of the industry and decreasing exposure of artists. I think we live in a world now where you can literally buy your way in. If you know the right people and you have enough cash, you can get the streams. And the streams are this arbitrary measurement by some company that was only created in like 2011 that represent to, I guess, you know, I'm making an inference here, but I don't know if I'm too wrong. Tell me what you think. I think it represents, at least to the general public, how good you are. If I have 2,000 streams and I haven't heard the song, or like say I'm a layperson, I'm just a random audience member, don't know anything about music, never picked up an instrument in my life. I see one song, it's got 2,000 streams. Next song, 2 million. Which one am I going to click on if I don't know? I'm going to click on the one that has 2 million because more people like it. It must be better. But who knows? The one with 2,000 could be vastly greater than the one with 2 million. Except the guy with 2 million went on Submit Hub, paid $5,000, and now he's got 1 million streams from that, paid a PR company, another 500K streams from that, bada bing, bada boom. Very average song, which I guess obviously is subjective, I note. But I guess the point is that the saturation of the industry has inadvertently created a lot of opportunity for artists, but also a lot of opportunities for companies and stakeholders with interests to monopolize certain sectors of the music creation and distribution process at the expense of artists for their own commercial benefit.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's just going to get worse. That's where I see it going. That's just going to get more and more.
Like a higher percentage from the distribution company taking from the artist.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, they never had, well, they had distribution, but it wasn't so readily available as one-click upload.
Yeah, that's right. But also it's like distribution now is not just, okay, I'm the conduit for actually making the song available to be listened to. It's I'm going to create these scheduled and promoted paid for posts on Reels and on TikTok and on Facebook ads and Snapchat stories that's like, algorithmically will feed it to a demographic, and you can pay for that. You can pay to be in the front of the line. And I don't think everyone deserves to be in the front of the line, because it should be on merit, artistic merit, not economic merit.
Unfortunately, money talks and bullshit walks.
Yep. It's scary.
And the more money you have, the louder your voice.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, it just gives, it reduces the facet of artistic endeavor to the point where you could have the best singer, just take a singer, guitarist on stage performance. They record perfectly, like a Lewis Capaldi, right? Yeah. Lewis Capaldi didn't really have the distribution behind him when he first started, but they saw it.
Yeah.
And then once it got monopolized, it was like, oh, this guy could sell 1 billion.
Yep.
And he has.
He's quirky.
He's good. He's different. The fat people love him.
Yep. And he's good.
And he's good.
The man has an amazing voice.
He's really good.
But this is the double-edged sword, right? Because someone like Lewis Capaldi, who is not your quintessential cookie-cutter pop star, can, with his genuine talent, be discovered by the audience first before the company. And with platforms like Instagram and like TikTok, blow the fuck up and get an audience. And then that generates the interest for the companies to then come in and say, okay, well, we want to invest in you and take you to the next level, which is an inevitable. You need to cross that line. But that's the, I guess, where the struggle is for me in terms of, okay, well, how do we manage this oversaturation, over-commercialization? Because on one end, obviously, it's really detrimental to a lot of artists, but on the other, someone who you would never think could be famous is now famous because these platforms have provided them with an avenue to access an audience that they would have otherwise been ignored by if they were on a billboard.
Like Bad Baby.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Shout out to Dr. Phil.
Yeah, shout out Dr. Phil. But that's a lot of truth.
But the virality of that clip
is ridiculous.
Her behavior.
120 million views.
Yeah. And look who's profiting. I mean, as much as Dr. Phil I saw him on Joe Rogan once being like, oh, I don't know, like, I hope she's okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like,
she's doing well, bro.
The revenue from that clip alone is significant.
She makes more than Dr. Phil.
Yeah, way more.
Yeah, way more.
But it's interesting that, she wasn't even a musician on that segment at all. No one even knew she had any musical interest at all. And the virality of that opened up an avenue for her to go, I can do whatever the hell I want. And so she did.
There's almost a duality in that word, viral.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It perpetrates throughout society like a virus, like a pandemic.
Totally.
But it's almost... Oh, thank you, sir.
No worries.
But it's almost like it gets inside of you. Mm-hmm. And if you're a creator, that's your end goal, is to go viral.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
But people don't know what to do when it happens to them.
And they also don't know... Well, they also don't realize, I think, that it doesn't actually mean cash in the bank.
No. And it doesn't mean status either.
Yeah. It's cool. It's like, hey, you blew up. One of your TikToks has a few million likes. Awesome. You're very attractive and funny in that 30 seconds. Congrats. But it's interesting, like the impact this has had genuinely on music. Songs are getting shorter, hooks are getting much, much closer to the verses. We're kind of seeing the complete removal of the bridge section.
Oh, there's no bridges anymore.
Because people want quick fixes. And there is this interesting kind of element, even like with really good, soulful, amazing, genuine singers. Their producers and their management are saying, okay, you can go and do those songs. We'll put those on the album, but the single is going to be 2 minutes, 35 seconds long. It's going to be hitting really hard. We can push it onto these platforms, and that's what's going to keep the money flowing in so that you can go and do whatever else you want to do.
The longest bridge that I've heard in the last 5 years has been, I'm a bad guy. Duh. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, wait, that was a bridge? Even though it's considered part of the chorus.
Yeah.
That's a bridge.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, with I Don't Mind, like the structure of that song's really interesting because it's like, there is no hook.
Yeah, there isn't.
But there also is. Like it starts with the hook, but then it's the first verse, and then Chiseko's verse. There's no hook in between.
True.
It goes from my verse to his, and then the hook comes back again as like a weird interlude bridgey section, and then it goes into like a guitar solo and then an outro. There is no real structure.
It's almost Bruno Mars-esque.
It was very inspired by him and Anderson .Paak. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
The Silk Sonic project.
Oh, my fucking head.
Yeah, you got
Beautiful. I noticed that you've got a lot of like. There's a lot of Bruno Mars in your songs,
Yeah.
but is that who you like listen to? Is like who's the reflection of that? Like,
I think it's like MJ, a lot of MJ,
okay.
who obviously inspired Bruno.
Yes.
And then more contemporary artists that I love, like Usher and Neo, Chris Brown, even Justin Bieber, that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. When I started playing guitar, I started leaning really heavily into things like heavy metal, hard rock, because that's probably the most fun thing you can play on guitar. I mean, the blues are great. The funk is great. But there's nothing like cranking the gain, tuning your low E down to D. And you don't even need to touch the fretboard. You can just make noise.
Yeah.
So I think that really inspired, particularly the guitar solo in I Don't Mind, which I mean, I'm very technical with guitar now. Like I've studied it for years, but like it kind of goes in between blues and rock and roll melodies and licks, which fits the song quite well, I think.
Well, you wouldn't have rock and roll and metal without blues.
Correct, yeah.
Do you find yourself... But you said you're a lead guitarist for Tobias?
Yeah. Well, the only guitarist. But I play lead. I don't play rhythm.
Happy days. Are you going to perform yourself?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it.
And if you do, are you going to do that solo live?
100%. I'll probably just improvise.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and like do something else.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I love doing that. Guitar is like one thing I really want to try and do now, maybe as almost a semi-replacement for pushing the recording artist singer thing, is get into a lot of session guitar work. Like I'm very confident in my guitar playing, far more confident than I am in my singing. Singing's hard.
Oh, yeah.
You can't hit one of these and then go on stage unless you're D'Angelo.
Yeah, or Post Malone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There are some people who are just absolute freaks and can just do anything to their body and still sing perfectly. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those freaks.
Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, she's really good.
Her voice is destroyed.
Yeah, but she can still sing.
And she can still sing.
It's Billy Ray.
It's sounding more like Billy Ray as she gets older.
Yeah.
Yeah. My thought, just before I'm going to bring this up, the Bruno Mars thing.
Yes.
Do you think Bruno Mars would be more into character if he had the sort of fandom that Michael Jackson had? Because there's nobody that exists like Michael Jackson nowadays.
No.
Like, he used to have to shut down shopping centers so he could pretend to go shopping.
Yeah.
They would pay actors to pretend to stand there and look at items.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, but that doesn't exist anymore.
No,
what artist is doing that? Most people like...
Not to that magnitude.
Yeah, that magnitude's out the fucking window.
Yeah.
And most people these days, unless you're like the Kardashians who like pretend like they don't like it, there's a reason as to why they're still making content, people.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have a show about their lives.
Yeah.
So they invite that in the public. Yeah.
Yeah, and
they're billionaires.
Yeah, and they're fucking billionaires.
With billions.
Do you think Bruno Mars would be more into the character, or if he had that fandom that Michael Jackson had, would he recluse?
I think he'd be more into the character. It's so hard with MJ, right? Because he changed the world, not just music, but the entire world. That level of fame was unknown. That guy was more famous than Elvis, who was arguably the most famous person of all time. But I think the fame of Michael Jackson was because he managed to bridge cultural barriers in the United States at a time where they were pretty turbulent.
Yeah.
But I think with
he was
Bruno Mars,
black, white, and we didn't know what sexy was.
Yeah, that's right. So I think with Bruno, I mean, with him and Usher and Neo and Chris Brown, they are all Michael Jackson inspired artists. So without him, they wouldn't necessarily exist or have the ability to produce the music that they do and move the way they do. So I think it's hard for me to answer what they would do if they were him, because they can't be him. They are them because of him.
Right.
Chris Brown, I think, is the closest we're getting to MJ. Unfortunately, the public still hasn't really accepted him back. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about this, but
beating up a woman's still better than touching kids. I said it.
Well, I mean, it's the devil you know or don't, I guess.
Yeah.
No, but I think with him, like that guy can sing and dance and like all
act,
this stuff.
everything.
He's fantastic. I mean, like he can just backflip into the splits and then get up and sing a vocal run. Like he just was in the booth. But unfortunately, I guess
Have you
the
heard
public
his raps?
Yeah, dude, he's amazing. Breezy, man, breezy.
That freestyle that he did. Oh my days. Yeah, it's almost like cutting the head off a Hydra.
Yeah.
Right? You cut the head off not literally off Michael Jackson, but if the entertainment industry was a Hydra, a Hydra, you cut the head off to come back.
That's right.
Right? If someone falls off, there's always going to be someone to replace that person because they have a commercial need to keep producing and putting out more songs.
Fill the gap.
Yeah, and continue with the attention grabbing.
Yes.
That's all this shit is, bro.
100%.
Like, whether it comes to social media, music, anything, it's all just grabbing attention.
Yeah, yeah. And targeting certain markets. But it's interesting because, I mean, like, we can't say that at the expense of the genuine talent of people like Usher and Chris Brown, who obviously have put the work in and are genuinely amazing. But I think what's really interesting is that, just, I guess, circling back on the Michael Jackson point, I've always said to people that he created the genre of pop. Like, pop as a genre didn't actually exist until Michael Jackson. And I say this because prior to him, and I'm thinking back to, like the 70s, 80s, where he really started making waves from the Jackson 5, etc. There was a lot of different genres that he and the Jackson 5 and other artists would kind of switch between, but he was the first one to really merge them. I mean, he has a Motown song with Slash from Guns N' Roses playing the solo.
So fire.
Right? All of his songs.
Did you see them live?
Yeah.
Michael's just like,
stop.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's now it's like, nah, we're going to sue you.
Yeah. Like, why are you doing a 17-minute solo, bro? What's going on? Yeah.
But he created that genre.
Yeah, for sure.
And he merged rock and roll and R&B and Motown and blues into pop. And now that's what pop is. Pop is not a type signature or a chord progression. Pop is popular because you can access the most amount of the populace by having the most amount of genres in one track or accessible elements in one track for people to grab onto. So someone from rock and roll might be like, oh, I really like the guitar in this track. And it might be a Dua Lipa track. Like, oh, I really like the guitar in this. Someone from the, urban space might be like, oh, I really like the drums. Mm-hmm. That's pop, right? It's not hip hop. It's not rock and roll. But it's popular because it ticks more than one box.
Right.
And Michael Jackson was the first to do that, in my opinion, like correctly to do it in a way that was like with conviction and was convincing and innovative.
Yeah. Before Michael Jackson, there wasn't really pop.
Not really.
Not really.
Not in the way that we know it today.
Yeah. That's a wild thought. So where does pop come from? Does it come from hip hop? Was it like
it comes from everywhere?
Like drum machines? Because there's not too many bands now that are considered pop. It's a lot of like single artists that go over the top of tracks.
Yes. Yeah.
So back then, I wonder if it was like live bands that were like, actually, let's play a little bit lighter.
Yeah. I think it was just the natural merging of cultures and genres and people as the world began to open up after the war, and the internet was a thing, and even things like I said, like fame and the concept of celebrity really changed. And your original point about community as well. I mean, pop music is a great way to bring different people together under one roof because they can appreciate different aspects of the one thing and find a relationship with each other instead of being like, oh, I only like rock and roll, or I only like hip hop, or I only like the blues. It's like, hey, well, here's this Bruno Mars track with Anderson .Paak playing a hip hop beat, and he's singing R&B, and the guitarist is playing a blues track. And then three people from those distinct genres as audience members can join together and say, this is a good song.
It's fire.
Which I think is really, really cool.
That's a good point. Yeah, pop does that. There's not too many. Well, I guess there is these days. You see a lot of like subgenres like collaborating. Like you'll see like heavy metal do with rap. And
yes.
But that was kind of... Did you know... Okay, so Aerosmith. You know Aerosmith,
of course.
Right? They tanked.
Really?
Right? And then they did that song with, is it MWA?
NWA? I didn't know they had a song with them.
Walk This Way. They did it.
Oh,
Run DMC.
yes.
Run DMC.
Yeah.
Right? So they had tanked. They got, within 6 months, they were top 10 chart billboards. And in 6 months' time, I don't know what happened, don't know the story, they couldn't even play clubs. And then they did a song with Run DMC. And Run DMC was blowing up at that time.
Yeah.
And then it brought them back. And then they were back in arenas.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, dude. So these kind of collaborations, they open up certain sectors of markets. But markets are just people.
Totally.
Right? Algorithms are just people.
Yep.
Right? If you just change that word, algorithm to audience. Audiences want to hear something different, but they don't want it so... Have you heard of the term nudist Buddhist?
No.
Right. So it's weird to be a nudist, right?
Yes.
And it's slightly weird to be Buddhist in a society that's run like Christian values.
In the West, yeah.
In the West, right? But if you're a nudist Buddhist, get the fuck out of here.
That's right.
You know
It makes
what I'm
no
saying?
sense.
But slight variations
Yes.
do still attract other people.
Totally.
And if you're looking at like what you were saying before with Michael Jackson and pop, he brought in like the blues and all, like take Thriller for example.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like nobody had ever heard a track like that.
Yeah. It's so cool.
It's wild.
Yeah, no one had ever heard a track like that. Like the bass line, doom 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 doom, doom 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 doom. That's a funk line.
Yeah, it's a
but
funk
the
line.
chords.
Yeah.
That's like a churchy gospel kind of, but also kind of cinematic
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's funny because pop now, then I feel it's so manufactured in a way that I think it's kind of we're way past Michael Jackson now, and we're just okay. Let's put it in a major key, add a bunch of really bright synths on there, bring in a songwriter that can create lyrics and a melody that's really easy to understand, can be understood by people who don't necessarily speak English. We'll crank up the bass, crank up the drums, make the vocals really crispy, send it. Now, obviously, I'm being a bit cynical here, but I think that pop has evolved from this really interesting way to amalgamate different genres and create something new to, okay, this is definitely just a pop song. When you hear it, you turn on the radio, you're like, this is a pop
This is a pop song.
Like Summer Nights, I Love You, guitar.
Yeah.
And then like there's a drop with some like Chainsmoker style synths in there.
Motherfuckers. Shout out
guys,
Chainsmokers.
man,
I love
those
you,
guys.
Hazzy.
Talk about minimalism.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're really, I don't know how they did it.
Well,
It's accessible, I guess.
yeah, 100%. Well, that's the whole simplicity rules at the moment.
Yeah.
right?
But what's really cool is I have a song with this guy called
Chainsmokers.
with Bro. I wish.
They liked a couple of my posts, but
They really?
yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah.
They're good dudes.
With this producer from Perth called Bromad. He is just another mad scientist. He's amazing. And we've made the most pop song ever.
Oh, really?
And I love it. It's like
Just
like
C major. All the way
yeah.
through.
Was actually I think in B flat major.
Oh,
Ooh.
shit.
I know,
We're
right?
fucking living on the dark side.
I know. So yeah, and like we really went into it thinking, okay, let's make this contemporary pop and make it really poppy and like really bright and really bubbly. But if we go into there knowing that's what we want to make, we can do it with conviction. And I just got the master back for that song the other day, and I'm just in love with it.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
Is that your next drop?
I think it's a collab between he and I, so it's not like a track that I have that he's featuring on, but we're definitely going to release it soon for sure.
Cool. I can't wait to hear it.
It's really good. Like, I love it. But I think what makes it so poppy is that we've blended genres. Like, I took some really cool R&B chords that I know from like an old song by this guy called Peebo Bryson. He sings
I thought you were about to say P&B Rock. I was like, damn.
Peebo Bryson sings a lot of classic R&B songs that probably not many people know, but he's on A Whole New World from Aladdin. He's the male vocalist on that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, such a good song, man. That guy can sing. He's amazing. So, my parents used to love him. So, there's this one song where, there's this really interesting chord progression that I kind of took and rearranged and played it on the guitar. and then I gave it to Bromad, and then I wrote a verse and a chorus, and it's kind of very singer-songwritery. It's kind of like me and the guitar for most of the song until after the chorus, and then it just drops so hard, and it just sounds like Skrillex has entered the chat.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I love it, and I think it's really interesting, especially from Perth as well. Like I haven't really heard many tracks like that out of Perth. So we're trying to do something that is new for this city, but also new for both of us as artists. Because I very much glue myself to the kind of R&B soul genre. But in this song, I'm not doing any vocal runs. There's hardly any harmonies. I'm singing like a pop vocalist deliberately. And I think it works. I love the song.
That's cool.
The ladies love it. So I show it to the boys, and they're a bit like, oh, well, you know, not really my cup of tea, mate. But I like your other one with the rapper. He's cool. What's his name again?
Chiseko.
That was such a good radio voice.
Yeah. So is your goal in the end to? Okay, so I've asked a couple of people this. The pre-question first. Where do you see Perth sitting in the music game at the moment? Do you think that it has a distinct sound, or do you think that it's more likely to be versatile in that there's so many different artists?
I think the latter. I think it's more versatile than being distinct.
Okay.
I think that's kind of Australia in general. But I think Perth in particular, we are forced to be good. Because over east, there's just way more people that work for... I mean, there isn't a label office of any of the major labels in WA. Like Sony, Universal, Warner Brothers, Def Jam. There isn't a single HQ. They're all over east. So A&Rs and execs and staff members from labels, obviously, they're people, they go out. They go out to clubs, they go out to bars, they go out and hang, and they encounter artists. And just because they're there, they go, sweet, yeah, let's have a chat. We don't have access to those individuals who can open those doors. So we are forced to be really, really good so that they either notice us or we go over there and destroy every local artist from Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, etc. So I guess to answer your question directly, you know, where I see Perth sitting, I see us very much as the underdog.
I've had that same answer quite a lot.
What do you think?
It's open to interpretation, and the sound is going to be set by the first person to blow.
Yeah.
Because that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's right.
One duck flies, they follow.
Yeah.
You know? There seems to be... So like Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane, they all kind of have like a drill-esque kind of Afro beats kind of... You know, like they have the sound solidified, but in their own way. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very Australian, but it's, you know, like it grabs from like Chicago drill or like UK drill or whatever the fuck it is. There are a couple of artists that I do deem like wildly different, and they're still doing very well. Mainly like, he's actually been in Levels before. What's his name?
From Perth?
No, I always fuck this up. Day One. Wild, right?
So good.
He's doing something completely different, and he's maintaining it.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't he's like stuck on the R&B. He's gone into a little bit of the Afro beats kind of thing with the Mbappe thing.
Yeah.
That's wildly good song.
So good.
But he's found his own way. Now, I don't think there's a characteristic of like people like following a certain genre once somebody blows, but the way that it goes is like you kind of follow where the attention goes.
Yeah.
That's why most people are on Instagram after the first photo was uploaded and got 1 million likes, you know? Like, well, we're all on Instagram now, you know? But it kind of seems like in Perth, there doesn't seem to be a person or a group or an artist that really stands out that makes everyone else go, damn, he's the one. We got to be like that, whatever genre it is.
Yeah.
And to answer my own question, it's all open.
I think it's so awkward with Australia as a country, though. Perth is the underdog in a country that is an underdog in the international scheme of music anyway. If an Australian artist blows up, they could be from Esperance. LA doesn't care. They're an Australian artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we follow, as a country, the trends that are set by the musical meccas of the United States and Europe. And all countries do this. I mean, look at K-pop. K-pop is the music that America was making in the early 2000s, really, except, much better mixed and much more refined.
Yeah.
But that has been set. So it's interesting, I think, with Perth and Australia in general, I think there just needs to be more collaboration of people between cities in Australia. And I think we could probably then help generate a more Australian sound in these kinds of urban genres like hip hop and R&B. But I think Australia's done quite well in genres such as folk, even things like bluegrass and country, ironically.
Tame Impala?
Yeah. Well, Tame Impala, I mean, talk about an amalgamation and combining of random genres.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? What is his music? It's amazing, but I cannot pick it. It starts off as like a pretty cruisy track.
It's like psychedelic kind
Very
of
psychedelic,
rock-esque. You can't name it.
Yeah.
Like there's tracks that are like Elephant, that
I love that song.
Yeah. If you cranked up the gain just a little bit, it would sound like a heavy metal track.
Totally.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
But then they have tracks that are like almost, well, they did have tracks on the radio that are radio worthy tracks.
Yep.
Like what's their main one? Shit. I always forget it. Yeah, but like
He's in Perth right now. You gotta...
Yeah,
He's
I've
here.
hit him up.
Yo.
He actually came into
Kevin.
Kevin. I used to work at a place called Beyond Breast. It's
I know that place.
yeah, it's a float center.
I love floats.
Yeah, right.
So cool.
How many times have you floated?
Oh, maybe like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
It's a pretty new thing for me.
I've done like 300.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, so we used to get like when I first did the internship, we used to get paid one shift. So it'd be like a 4-hour shift and you get a free float after it. But 4 hours at Beyond Breast, because they do something that nobody else does. And that is communicate with you after the float. How was it? Any like enlightening experiences,
Wow.
all that kind of stuff. They sit down with you.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, he was at one of Tame's early gigs.
Yep.
And then he went out afterwards. And he was in Fremantle. And Kevin was there. And he was like, he had a voucher on him. And he's like, hey man, if you want to come in and float, here's a fucking voucher.
Sick.
And he's like, dude, thank you so much. Gave him a hug. And then he came into the fucking float center. And I was
Yeah.
like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
And we literally in the staff room behind the door was worship him and a face of like him and a psychedelic pattern. And like we were like, holy fuck, he's here.
He graced us with his presence.
Yeah, it's like that. He's almost like a Jesus.
Yeah,
like
he
he's got
is.
the facial hair for it.
Godly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, in Australia, when one of our artists does acquiesce to that level of international fame, we all rally behind them, which is what I mean by we should collaborate more and be more open with each other. There's this really, I guess, it's a bit of a rat race in this country of, maybe if I can push past you, and I can get in front, then I get the opportunity. And I think, particularly in the genres we were talking about, like with hip hop and that kind of stuff, just because of the nature of the genre, there's a lot of kind of competition and aggression that is projected towards other artists. And I think, for me, I'm a bit of a pacifist diplomat. I think, okay, well, why don't you do a collab together? If 2 artists are kind of competing at this level, if you collab and you combine your resources with all the things we were talking about previously with distribution companies and algorithms and those kinds of things, you literally double your chances of success together. And we as a country are versing the rest of the world. We shouldn't be fighting each other.
It's a good point. It's not finite.
Not at all.
Attention isn't finite.
Yeah.
Right? Just because you have one song that goes crazy doesn't mean all the attention's on you forever. Right? And there's no number one. That Billboard shit, I hate to say it, but it's paid.
Yeah.
Like,
in many ways.
Take that Tekashi 6ix9ine dude, for example. When he got out of prison, he released a song with Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
And like there was big uproar about it and everything. And like he shouted out to billboards like fuck you, fuck all the companies, fuck Spotify, all that kind of stuff. They shadow banned him. You couldn't search him up. But then on his own accord, he got his fan base to purchase hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of albums.
Yeah.
And then a credit card purchase was made for like 30,000 albums. And he went to number 1.
Yeah.
So it's like get the number one shit out of your head.
Yeah, it's sales based.
Yeah.
And like, if you can buy sales, then how indicative is Billboard of the talent? And also, even if we, if you cut out that process of just buying sales, just the resources of being able to be heard and being able to push your music into places where it gets streams and it gets purchases and people buy merch. Those resources are the ticket into things like charting. And I also think this is going to be controversial.
Let's go.
But this is me, I guess, speaking from a very objective commercial point of view, not really artistic or creatively. There needs to be a Triple J competitor. We need more free market activity in the commercial arts of this country, because it's been monopolized by a couple places or companies and institutions in this country, like Triple J. I mean, like in Perth, they're kind of like the gatekeepers in many ways for a lot of artists. But it's run by a small team in Perth or some office in Australia. There's no necessarily like big oversight or any kind of transparency to the public or to artists as to how they make their decisions, who is making the decisions about who gets played and when. But unfortunately, the general public says, oh, sick, you're on Triple J, you must be good. And if you're not, then it's like, oh, like, have you ever been played on Triple J? Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, well, I don't mind. We got like a circulation on Triple J and I told someone about it and they have this visceral reaction. And to me, I was kind of like, well, I mean, is it that deep? I don't know. I strongly believe there should be a competitor, because in America, the radio stations compete, and just like any kind of free market product, competition breeds innovation. And I think if there was a competitor to the monopolized radio and streaming services in Australia, more Australian artists would get a chance to blow up and do really well and be heard. But I think it's maybe slightly part of or a result of our culture here, where we're very laid back, by the beach, she'll be right. No one wants to try and take on Goliath in this country. And that would be a big thing, I think, that would help Perth and the rest of the country progress.
My thoughts on that are that Goliath is a made up notion because we're living now in an age of decentralized entertainment.
Yeah.
And
somewhat.
Well, I think it's what people accept, and that's how much
that's true.
Prevalent.
Yeah.
The fact of these companies that have already got their fingers in every pie, like Triple J, 92.9, 94.5, the radio stations.
Yeah.
They are literally just following the patterns of when they got built because they saw the opportunity. Now it's an open market, right? Anybody can have the same kind of integration that Triple J has. They could be their own gatekeeper with the amount of content that they put out. Now, Gary V, he says content is king. And content basically just means the ongoing persistence of attention grabbing through media.
Yes. And
if you're not constantly trying to grab attention, now I'm not saying if it goes against your values to be like, hey, look at me, guess what? It's probably not for you. Right?
Absolutely.
Because if you are on stage and you're like hiding away,
yes,
nobody wants to fucking get up the front. Like,
yeah,
you've got to be the energy, right?
That's right. And
people want to see that energy at all times. Now, to say that there's a gatekeeper in front of you like Triple J, there's not, right? There's almost, that's the only path that people know how to break through. So that must be the only path. But that's not true anymore.
I agree.
We now have, like we were talking about earlier, viral posts. Yes. We have like TikTok videos, all these kind of crazy different like means.
Absolutely.
To the point of where Triple J will contact you if you go viral enough.
Yes, absolutely.
They'll be chasing you.
But they're the only ones that are in that space that will make contact.
100%.
I guess that's my point, where it's like, absolutely, I 100% agree that Triple J is a gatekeeper of one road. There are multiple roads an artist can go down to find success. But part of the result of Triple J owning that particular road is that the public thinks more of it than I think is necessary. So it's, I guess, we don't have radio competitors. now the radio stations are competing with Spotify radio or Apple Music radio or something like that.
True.
But, you know, when you're down in the hole mining, you're on site, you know, living the classic Aussie dream, most of the time you just put on Triple J.
Mm-hmm.
There should be another Triple J.
Well, hopefully, is it Skynet? No.
We need Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, where are you? Yeah, no, but if there comes like a time, I'm pretty sure Elon Musk has a Wi-Fi satellite program that he's
Starlink.
That's the one. Not
Yeah.
Skynet. Could be.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah, but let's be honest.
Skynet is Google.
Skynet is Google.
100%.
100%. Did you see the
AI thing.
The AI?
Yeah.
Fuck that. That fucked me up. But if there is a time and place where the people up north are going to have that same kind of like connection that we have down in Perth to the internet, well then radio is going to be redundant because now you have like the infinite entertainment options.
Yeah.
When that time becomes apparent, maybe then Triple J will become redundant.
Yeah.
But until that happens, or until somebody comes in and says, like, hey, I'm from Def Jam, I'm from Universal, whatever, it will come.
Mm-hmm.
It will.
Yeah.
Because the way that it goes is the more artists that are following the path from Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and a lot have been doing that recently, America's going to notice.
Yeah.
And then they're going to be like, oh, shit, we're missing out on a part of America that's not here.
Yeah.
Because that's where we're 10 years behind America.
Yeah, in many
Maybe
ways,
20,
especially in the
maybe 20.
entertainment industry,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, like, you know, with the Triple J thing, like, obviously, I have nothing but respect for the way that they have managed to grow what was just a radio station into a multimedia enterprise. I mean, even doing things like hosting Triple J. What's the cover thing they do? Sorry? Oh my gosh, I've had so many people on there. Like a version.
That's the one.
Like, that is genius. That's content.
Yes.
Right? So they're not just a radio station now.
Yeah.
And like, obviously, yeah, there's heaps of other avenues through them, but I think I come from a more of American context where it's like there are like 10, 15, 20 radio stations all at the same level, which all provide equal opportunity as a springboard in that road to blow up. Whereas I feel like the biggest springboard in the radio space to help get your music noticed is Triple J. They're the biggest. And I think it would just be nice if maybe there was another platform like that. But it's probably impossible because we don't have the relationship to radio in this country that they do in the United States. So we are forced as artists then to seek other avenues like the ones that you correctly pointed out of, you know, going viral, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, to have someone like Triple J behind you would be a great help.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, it's another resource.
Yeah.
And like, if you could do that and also have TikTok and also have Instagram, you're better off than just having TikTok and Instagram and no Triple J. Yeah. So if there was more institutions like them that had the resources to push artists, I think that would be better for the country.
In your background of commercial law, do you see it being a jump? Is it too far of a jump that it would happen like that? Like there would be another person or entity that steps in and...
I think so. I think we're maybe beyond that.
Yeah?
Yeah, because they've been going on for so long, right?
What do you forecast?
I think we're gonna get a bit curly here.
Let's get it.
I think artists should be thinking very seriously about things like streaming, such as Discord, and things like the Metaverse, virtual reality, maybe to some extent some crypto kinds of things, but I'm not too sure about that. I'm not very well versed in that area. But I guess all of this kind of falls under the umbrella of innovative technologies that you can use to get access to an audience. Because, I mean, this Metaverse stuff is going to happen. I mean, right now we're all laughing at Zuck being like, this looks so dumb. It looks like my Wii from 2006. But there's a reason Nike spent $200 million buying land in the metaverse because these big companies know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think just educating yourself in those areas will be a really good way to blow up. So I think what I forecast is that music is going to become access to music from the audience to the artist is going to be more and more subject to technology and forums, places where you can discover. Whereas now I still think we're in that really interesting transition period between kind of the old ways where a lot of people still do listen to the radio. They chuck on 94.5, they chuck on Triple J. And then there's another third of people that listen just to Spotify playlists that are algorithmic and they don't really make their own. And then like there's a small growing sector of people who are really still trying and are really into new music as an audience member and are seeking out new talent and new artists and are very interested in that. But I think that area of things is going to overtake the rest once new technologies arise. Like TikTok is a great example. I mean, that is an application, of course, but it's also an entire forum of connection, of getting the audience to the content and vice versa. And the more of those that are created in relationship to new technologies, I think then the more musicians will have to innovate in those spaces. Because who knows what kind of music's going to be playing in the metaverse. You can literally go to a club in the metaverse and have your VR goggles on and be clubbing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this will create a change in the types of music being made. Like what kind of music is going to be listened to in those spaces. I mean, now, with virality and things like TikTok and Instagram, as we discussed previously, songs are getting shorter. There's no bridge. I think something like that or equivalent to that will happen again when these new technologies enter the common man's world.
Almost like a TikTok version of a song, like 25 seconds of like experience.
Totally.
Something that's, I know this. And then and then on to the next.
And you can buy it, right? And it can feed your VR headset and your 3D headphones. And it's, you don't want to be in there for too long. It might even be a bit overwhelming sensory wise, but maybe, a really awesome rapper can create the most fire trap beat and rap verse that only lasts 30 seconds, mirror it with this amazing 3D VR experience that you can purchase for $2.99 in the metaverse today.
Fuck. It's almost like taking a holiday for 30 seconds, right? If you're at work, it's a stressful day. I just need to relax.
Yeah.
Jurell, I just need to relax on the beach somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? And then, put it on.
Have you seen Ready Player One?
Yes.
I think it's going to be kind of like that, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's almost a realistic depiction of like what you could see happening.
Yeah.
One thing that I predict, right? 60% of our current population in Australia is over the age of 45. Within the next 40 years, 60% of the people are going to be dead. And they're the people that listen to the radio.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
As numbers go down, it's not going to be a viable option to keep that business platform open anymore unless those people in those companies seek out a way to innovate.
Yeah.
And maybe implement themselves into the metaverse as well. But if it's no longer a thing and radio stations aren't around anymore because we have decentralized entertainment, if it becomes to a point where everything's free as well, like you buy the headset, but like living in that world is completely free.
Yeah, or a subscription or something. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
Or like doing a certain amount of hours in the game, or like you wouldn't call it a game.
Yeah, engagement with the product.
Yeah, so you're bettering that.
You can buy your way in.
And it might feel like physical work, but it's actually in like the computational sense, it's actually just coding.
Yeah. And data farming. They're farming your data.
Right. But how much fucking data do you need?
As much as you can get. The more you get, the more insight you have into people's minds.
And where does that lead?
Well, it means that you can then target them. And this is kind of what we're really interested in doing with Levels. Data analysis is one of our primary limbs of operation because the data is available to you as a creator. I mean, I'm sure you've seen with your own artists, you can look at the analytics, right? And the analytics are amazing. They tell you everything, not who the people are, but where they're from, and what age they're in.
You jerked off yesterday.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. I've seen your search history, man. You need to
What
see
are you
therapist,
doing?
bro. Come on.
Also searched.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that the data, we're going to start seeing people get targeted more. I guess what's concerning for the artist is the artist. He's like, I got a great idea for a song. I just want to make the song. I don't want to make a song that's designed for men 18 to 22 who live in Lebanon.
Fair point. Because it's almost another language, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you spent 10, 15 years learning how to play music and actually incorporate yourself into being a composer.
Yeah.
Look, that really doesn't matter in the scheme of things because you can just open a digital audio workspace and learn this shit in a year anyway. So now we need you to kind of focus on the analytics side of things and make serious amounts of content so we can popularize you.
Totally.
And that's where it's heading.
Yeah, I agree.
With your levels endeavor,
Yes.
are you finding that it's going to be more of a means to go down the advertisement for artists, or is it going to be more of a means to go down the advertisement for companies?
We're focusing on companies and commercial entities primarily.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
And
Why?
yes.
Well, I think that they are probably in more need of our services than the artist. I mean, any artist worth their salt would at least have an awareness of things like data analytics and targeted advertising. And a lot of companies do when they reach a certain level. But smaller startups, cafes, that kind of stuff, I mean, they kind of know it's a thing, but they have no idea what it is, how to access it, what the language is. So I think for us, we see more corporate opportunity in terms of helping an apparel company that makes an amazing set of sunglasses reach the audience they want to reach because their focus is just on manufacturing that product. And a lot of companies that that I have had experience with, whether working for or as a client of my own, are very, very good at making that thing or providing that service, but aren't necessarily meticulously aware of how to create an awareness that they exist in the wider audience. Whereas artists, the whole point of being an artist is that people listen to your stuff. And you have a manager that's, pretty, has to be innovative and recognize okay, well, let's upload it with these hashtags. Let's target this audience. This is a current trend. Let's see if we can squiggle our way into that trend and take on some of that market. Whereas if you just make sunglasses, you're like, okay, I've made sunglasses. Great. They're really good sunglasses. Levels can say, okay, well, here are the trends. We can create an ad that inserts your product into the trend. We can target it at specific people in specific areas that the market research tells us are likely to purchase those products. And by merging your product with the trend and that specific level of targeting, you are going to likely have an increase in sales because you're reaching the right people instead of just uploading it to Instagram and hoping someone finds your page and connects with your product enough to like your page so that they can see when you're selling your next suite of products. Whereas the artists, we find a lot of them are already kind of aware of that.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
I really like that. That's almost an awesome mission statement for the company. Let me find what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what?
We might take that, trademark that.
Trademark it. Lock it down. One last question before we end this. Jurell, are you happy?
Yes, I am.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, man. I've kind of gone through I feel like I've lived a whole life and my life has just begun in many ways. But yeah, I'm very happy. It's nice to know what I am passionate about. It's nice to actually know, this is my thing. I really like this and I want to do this. And now I'm just putting the measures in place to try and achieve that. And that's really fulfilling. And I feel I'm still young enough to take risks and fall on my ass and get up and keep running down the same road. And hopefully look back on this podcast and smile with glee and be like, wow, I made it.
Yeah, dude.
That's the hope.
That's amazing. Beautiful. Beautifully said. And man, like your whole demeanor, it just reaps success.
Oh, well, thanks.
Like literally you've got like a glow about you. You know where you're going, man. Just follow your heart with everything that you do. I'm sure you'll be very, very successful.
I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on here and allowing me to speak.
Dude, no, it's been a pleasure.
I'd love to come back sometime.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
How can people get in touch with you?
Just Jurell on Instagram.
On Instagram?
Yep.
And
Jurell.
And is Jurell on Spotify as well?
Yes.
And your track, what was it called again?
I Don't Mind.
I Don't Mind, motherfucker.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I Don't Mind. I Don't Mind is out now. Ladies and gentlemen, please stream it. This has been The Roadshow. Thank you for coming in, brother.
Thank you.
And I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Take me home, I wanna know if you're down, ready to go. Wanna fly away with you, float away, fly